I've been called a lot of things in my life. Too quiet, too soft, too forgiving. But loser wasn't one I expected from my own son. Not at the lake house. Not during summer. Not when I was literally grilling burgers for him. He said it with that special teenage venom, too. Not the yelling kind. The slow burn kind. He leaned back in the Adirondack chair, smirked like a drunk talk show guest, and let it fly. No offense, Dad, but you kinda peaked in the 90s. You're like a seasonal loser. Seasonal. Like allergies. Or fruit. This from the same kid who still calls me for help when the Wi-Fi gets glitchy. To be fair, the insult didn't come out of nowhere. Tensions had been building for weeks, starting with him volunteering to walk the dog 3 times a day wearing jeans that cost more than my monthly mortgage in college and enough cologne to fumigate a gymnasium. That was my first clue. The second came wrapped in cheap lip gloss and a suspicious giggle. Her name was Lila. 16, like my son. Daughter of Darren, the charming contractor/dash custom home specialist who had just happened to start working on the boathouse with suspicious frequency and who also happened to be screwing my wife. Yeah, that Darren. So when our two families somehow reconnected that summer and decided a joint vacation sounded like a bonding opportunity, I already had both eyes open. My wife, Paige, pitched it like a reunion. The kids get along. It's good for us. We've barely used the lake house since your brother passed. Let's not let it rot. Right. Us. The marriage equivalent of a corporate synergy meeting. I agreed for 2 reasons. I wanted to keep an eye on her. I wanted to see how far she'd go to pretend everything was fine. Spoiler, pretty far. She cooked, cleaned, made jokes about our old life, wore her hair the way I used to like it. But every night after dinner, she disappeared for sunset swims, which, let's be honest, nobody takes with their phone turned off. I didn't confront her. Not then, because something more interesting was happening right under her powdered nose. My son, Tyler, had a crush. At first I thought it was innocent. Summer love, maybe a little teenage fumbling. He'd puff his chest out when Lila came around. Told me the dog liked the woods better than the road. Sure, buddy. He even started listening to vinyl. Vinyl, like some kind of TikTok bohemian. But then he got cocky. Started rolling his eyes when I talked, telling me I didn't get it. Once, I made a comment about Darren's car, some overcompensating black-on-black Range Rover, and Tyler muttered, "At least he drives something that isn't from a sitcom." That stung, not because I cared about the car, because it sounded rehearsed, like something his mother would say, or worse, like something Darren would say. The final breadcrumb came at the barbecue. We'd invited both families and a few neighbors. I was flipping burgers, Paige was pouring wine like a suburban sommelier, and Darren was holding court by the dock, shirt off, drink in hand, looking like a man who thought 46 was the new 22. I was holding it together, until Lila got drunk. Teen drunk. That babbling, loose-lipped kind that doesn't know the line between flirt and confession. She cornered me near the cooler. "Mr. Harper," she said, breath heavy with hard seltzer, "Tyler's so sweet. Like, so much sweeter than his mom's other boyfriend's son." I froze. "Come again." She giggled. "Oops." I waited. She kept talking. "I mean, it's kinda weird that his mom's doing the dirty with my dad. Hello, awkward. But Tyler's totally not mad. He said he's just evening the score." She hiccuped. I blinked. She winked. "Is that messed up?" "It's kinda messed up. But, kinda hot too, right?" Nope. It wasn't hot. It was nuclear. My son was sleeping with the daughter of my wife's affair partner as revenge. Teenage Romeo and Juliet. If Romeo was petty and Juliet was drunk on Ken Mango Fizz. And me? I was apparently the clueless mascot of this weird family carnival, slapping cheese on burgers while my legacy burned around me. That was when Tyler walked over. Saw me talking to Lila. Smirked. "Problem, Dad." And there it was. That look. That smug little head tilt. He didn't know I knew. But I did. I looked at him. This kid I raised. This version of me with worse manners and better hair. And I realized something. He thought I was weak. Because I hadn't yelled. Because I hadn't flipped the table. Because I was still grilling burgers like nothing had happened. He didn't know I was just letting the scene play out. Giving everyone rope. Because when I pulled it, it was going to strangle everyone. I smiled at him. "No problem at all, son." He walked away. And I turned back to the grill with one thought. Dinner's coming. But not the kind they expect. The next morning, the lake house was quiet, but not in that peaceful, birds chirping, cottagecore way. More like the morning after a blackout party, where everyone's pretending nothing happened while secretly hoping nobody remembers what they said. I remembered everything. The fake smile my wife gave me when she handed me coffee. The little glance Lila gave Tyler before turning pink and hurrying back to her side of the deck. And the way Tyler avoided eye contact altogether, tapping away on his phone like the previous night hadn't dropped a nuclear bomb across our entire bloodline. I was done playing dumb, but I still wasn't going to explode. Not yet. See, I've always believed in one universal truth. People tell you who they are when they think they've won. Paige thought she had me boxed in. Tyler thought he was avenging something. And Darren, well, Darren thought he was the charming guest star in everyone else's family drama, which made what I had planned that much better. First, I needed a setup. Something that looked big enough to deserve everyone's attention, but not big enough to raise suspicion. Enter the Harper family legacy dinner. I floated it that afternoon while pretending to flip through my late brother's old boating manuals on the deck. Hey, I said, loud enough for Paige and Darren to hear from their loungers. Thinking of doing something nice for everyone before the weekend wraps. A little tribute to the family, the lake house, my brother, maybe a special dinner. Been a while since we did something with a little class. Paige blinked like she didn't recognize the concept. Darren perked up. You mean like a fancy dinner? Black tie. Exactly, I said, standing up and dusting my hands off. Let's treat it like a real event. Celebrate the legacy. I'll handle the invites. Tyler wandered out of the boathouse right then, t-shirt wrinkled, hair a mess, looking every bit like a kid who'd just made very adult decisions and didn't want to talk about them. Dinner, he asked. Yep, big one. Saturday night. Just family. No neighbors. He shrugged. Cool, whatever. Inside, I was smiling, because they'd all just RSVP'd to their own reckoning. Over the next 2 days, I played the part. Prepped the dining room. Had Mira, my niece, my late brother's daughter, drive up early to help with decor. She didn't know the full plan yet, but she didn't need to. All she needed to do was show up, stay sharp, and play her role. She was the wild card no one expected me to still be close to. Especially not Tyler. The thing about Mira is, she used to date Darren's son. Briefly. Long enough to be dragged into the orbit of these people. Long enough to understand what kind of scum her ex's dad really was. When she found out about Paige and Darren a few weeks earlier, courtesy of one blurry vacation photo that Darren's son accidentally posted to his private story, she didn't call me. She drove to the lake house. Told me in person. That's when the gears started turning. You sure you want to do this? She'd asked, watching me scribble outlines on the back of an old menu. I looked up. If I don't, they'll rewrite the story. And Tyler, he's not just confused. He's becoming them. She nodded. Then let's make it unforgettable. Saturday arrived with sunshine and hypocrisy. Paige wore white, of course, and spent half the day slicing fruit she didn't eat and telling Mira how wonderful it was to have her here. Darren wore a linen button-up, opened to the third button, and brought a bottle of wine he couldn't pronounce. Tyler, somehow, found a sport coat. Lila wore a dress with enough sparkle to cause retinal damage. Me? I wore a navy suit. Clean shave. Pocket square. The kind of look people mistake for dignity. Or control. Dinner started with toasts. Paige went first, talking about tradition and cherishing our moments. Darren followed with some nonsense about chosen family and building new memories. Then I stood, cleared my throat, and smiled. Thank you all for being here tonight. It means a lot, especially given the changes we've gone through this year. My brother loved this place. He wanted it to be a legacy, a place to gather, to grow. So I thought, why not make it official? Everyone sat up a little. Paige narrowed her eyes. Tyler looked curious, maybe a little nervous. I reached into my blazer and pulled out a manila envelope. I had some paperwork drawn up. A mock-up will. Nothing binding, but it outlines how the estate would be divided. Just for fun. A glimpse at the future. Mira glanced at me, her face unreadable. Darren chuckled. You really went all in, huh? I unfolded the papers. Cleared my throat. I, Gregory Harper, being of sound mind and overcooked patience, hereby leave the Harper Lakehouse estate, the accompanying land and assets, and all future holdings associated with the Harper Family Trust, to my son, Tyler Harper. Tyler's eyes widened. Paige's hand twitched. Effective upon my death or voluntary relinquishment of the property. Lila gasped like she'd just won a contest. I paused. Let them stew. Let Tyler smirk. He leaned back, smug as ever. Well, guess I'm not a loser after all, huh, Dad? Everyone chuckled. Everyone except Mira. And me. I looked up at him. Locked eyes. You're right. I reached down, pulled a lighter from my pocket, lit the corner of the will. It caught fast. Flames climbed the paper, curling it inward until all that remained was black ash drifting onto the linen tablecloth. Silence. You're not a loser, Tyler. I turned to Mira. You're just not the heir. Tyler stood up. What the hell is this? I ignored him, reached into my other pocket, pulled out a second envelope. This one real. This is the actual will. My lawyer filed a copy yesterday. The entire estate, including the house, land, trust assets, and naming rights, is going to Mira. Paige stood. You can't. I can. And I did. Tyler's face flushed. But I'm your son. I looked at him. Hard. Then act like it. Lila stood too, clearly trying to figure out if she was supposed to be insulted or flattered. Darren. He stayed seated. The color had drained from his face. Because he knew. He recognized the trap. As for you, I said, turning toward him, I'd say thanks for the home renovations, but given how much you've tried to wreck this one, consider your access revoked. Paige's mouth moved, but no words came out. I walked around the table. Slow. Calm. Put a hand on Myra's shoulder. She earned it. She showed loyalty when no one else did. Then I walked to the door. Turned back. Dinner's over. Please clean up after yourselves. Mira and I have some redecorating to do. And I walked out. Didn't slam the door. Didn't look back. Just left them sitting there, speechless, titleless, legacyless. Exactly where they belonged. The lake house had never been quieter. Not even in the years after my brother passed, when the place sat mostly unused except for the occasional off-season fishing trip or solo weekend to decompress. But now it was silence with weight. Tension hanging in the pine-scented air like a held breath nobody dared to release. That night, after the legacy dinner, I didn't sleep in the master bedroom. I let Paige have it. Not out of kindness, out of symbolism. She could keep the room, the mirrors, the memory of what she wrecked. I slept in my brother's old studio above the garage, a drafty little loft with creaky stairs, cracked paint, and a view of the dock that used to make him feel like a king. Mira joined me the next morning with coffee and silence. We didn't need to say much. Her eyes said it all. You did it. Mine answered, not yet. See, ripping up a fake will in front of your family is satisfying. Declaring a niece your heir? Poetic. But legacy isn't paperwork. It's what you do with it. And Tyler? Paige. They weren't going to go down quietly. I heard the shouting before I saw them. Tyler's voice, all cracked testosterone and wounded pride, barking from the deck. This is bullsh. You can't just give it away. It's our house. Our. Like he paid the taxes. Like he fixed the plumbing. Like he'd done anything except smirk from the shoreline and copy-paste his mom's bitterness into teen rage. I stepped outside. He turned fast. Tell her, he snapped, pointing at Mira like she was a squatter and not the legal heir. Tell her she can't just take it. You're the dad. You're the mistake, I said calmly. That stopped him. Excuse me. I mean that in the most biological way possible. You weren't planned. You weren't earned. You just happened. And for the last 2 years, you've been watching your mom treat loyalty like an inconvenience and copying every move. He blinked. But I'm your son, he said again, like that word was a passkey. No, I said. You're a reflection, and I'm done polishing mirrors. Paige stepped out behind him, robe tied like she thought this was still her stage. Greg, you've made your point. But disinheriting your own son? Really? That's what? Some kind of legacy. Better than sleeping with a contractor and calling it personal growth. Mira choked on her coffee beside me. Paige's face turned redder than the geraniums on the porch. You're bitter. I stepped forward. No, I'm busy. You got the house for the last year, emotionally, sexually, maybe even financially, if Darren's invoices are as padded as his ego. Now I get the rest. She scoffed. You're pathetic. And you're trespassing. She looked stunned. You're actually kicking me out? Not yet, but the legal paperwork goes through next week. So I suggest you pack while you still have a husband polite enough to let you take your monogram towels. She stormed back inside. Tyler followed, still muttering, still trying to summon a version of himself that didn't exist. Mira sipped her coffee and stared at the horizon. You always this calm? No, I said. I'm just not interested in giving them another scene. I'm interested in giving them a deadline. That night, I emailed my lawyer to expedite the estate handover. He replied with a thumbs-up emoji and a PDF attachment confirming the motion. I printed it, framed it, hung it in the kitchen above the fireplace Paige used to decorate with seashells and cliché wooden signs. You know the type. Lake life is the best life. I replaced it with a new plaque. Loyalty lives here. Mira saw it first and laughed so hard she spilled wine on her jeans. Bit dramatic, she said. I shrugged. It's a lake house. There's room for drama. Paige and Tyler didn't leave right away. Of course they didn't. They lingered. Passive-aggressively. Paige vacuumed rooms no one used. Tyler mowed the lawn at 7 in the morning with the blades set too low, like he was trying to scalp the earth itself. Darren didn't show his face again, but I'm sure Paige spent her nights texting him under a blanket labeled, "It's complicated." And me? I started fixing things. Repainted the dock. Replaced the busted window screen. Installed a better lock on the boathouse. And gave Mira the spare key. Each act was small, but deliberate. A kind of reclamation. Not of the house. Of myself. The real shift happened when Mira hung photos in the upstairs hallway. Not posed portraits. Candid ones. My brother laughing in the canoe. Me and Mira baking bread. Back when she was 13 and obsessed with Food Network. Even one of Tyler, age 5, asleep on the dock, face covered in marshmallow. Paige saw them. Said nothing. But I watched her flinch. Good. Because that's what legacy is, what survives. And she wasn't part of it anymore. 3 days later, they left. Tyler didn't say goodbye. Paige did. Sort of. She walked up to me as I was sweeping the deck. I hope this makes you feel powerful. No, I said. Just clean. She opened her mouth to say something else. Then stopped. She'd finally learned the most important lesson. You don't win by yelling. You win by staying. By outlasting. After they drove off, Mira brought out 2 beers. Set one next to me on the porch railing. I guess this makes us business partners, she said. I looked around at the house, the dock, the lake. Nah, I said. This makes us family. She raised her bottle. I raised mine. We clinked. And for the first time in a very long time, I didn't feel like a loser. I felt like the guy who finally figured out what mattered, and who he was willing to burn everything else down to protect. The lake always changes after a storm. Still looks calm from the dock, sure, but underneath, everything's been stirred. Old debris floats to the surface. Silt clouds what used to be clear. That was the lake house in the weeks after Paige and Tyler left. Quiet, but not peaceful, and definitely not the same. Mira and I settled into a new rhythm. She'd take morning walks with the dog, my dog, the one Tyler used as an excuse to sneak around in the first place. I handled the repairs, the real kind. Replaced a few boards on the porch. Tore down the termite-ridden lattice work Darren probably quoted 444. We even found the old canoe my brother used to fish from, tucked behind the shed, and patched it up together. For a while, it almost felt like things were healing. Then the call started. The first was from my sister-in-law, Myra's mom. She wasn't yelling, which is how I knew she was furious. I just got a message from Paige. She says you've weaponized grief for property leverage. That's a hell of an accusation, Greg. I paused mid-screw, balancing on the ladder, fixing a warped gutter. You mean the grief that came after she turned my marriage into a public joke and taught my son to treat loyalty like an expired coupon? There was silence on the line. Then, you know what? I didn't call to argue. I don't know what Tyler was thinking. Me neither. Do you hate him? That stopped me. I looked out over the yard. The grass had started to green again where Tyler scalped it with the mower. No, but I don't trust him. Not yet. Maybe not ever. She sighed. And Paige. I don't need to hate someone to erase them. Click. End of call. Mira found me an hour later. You all right? She asked, handing me an iced tea like some kind of moral support intern. I told her about the call. She didn't flinch. You didn't erase anyone, she said. You just stopped making excuses. That stuck with me. Because she was right. A week later, Tyler showed up. No call. No warning. Just walked up the gravel driveway with a duffel bag and that same sideways smirk that used to earn him candy from relatives and now made my skin crawl. He stood at the bottom of the steps. I didn't move. Dad, he said, can we talk? I didn't answer. Not immediately. I let the silence stretch long enough for him to question it. Just long enough for him to feel what it was like to not be owed anything. Just 5 minutes, he added. I think I messed up. You think? I stepped aside, wordless, and let him pass. We sat on the deck. He looked older, not in a mature way, in a brittle way, like something behind the eyes had cracked and never quite reset. He spoke first. I don't even know what I thought I was doing with Lila. I mean, I knew it was wrong. He trailed off. I didn't fill the gap. I thought if I could one-up you, if I could prove I wasn't some loser stuck in your shadow, maybe I'd feel better. I watched the lake ripple. You didn't fall in my shadow, Tyler, I said finally. You ran from it. Big difference. He exhaled. I'm not proud of any of it. And Mom. He trailed off again. She's spinning. Darren bailed. I guess his wife found out. Took the house. The business. Everything. I raised an eyebrow. And what? You want to move back in here now that her life exploded? He winced. No. I don't want anything. Another pause. I want to understand how you didn't completely lose it. Like, how did you not freak out? I took a sip of tea. Because freaking out's loud. But power? That's quiet. He blinked. That's some Obi-Wan crap. Maybe, I said. But it worked. He looked down. I'm sorry, Dad. Not just for the Lila thing. For all of it. For calling you a loser. For treating you like you weren't there. I let the words sit between us. I didn't say, I forgive you. I didn't hug him. I just nodded. And then, you want a second chance, Tyler? He nodded fast. Too fast. Then earn it. Not with words. Not with flowers on Mother's Day or some crap Instagram post. Start showing up. Start taking responsibility. He nodded again. And then I said the thing that made his face go pale. And you'll start by apologizing to Mira. He stood frozen. You hurt her too, I said. She watched you dismantle your family and treat her like collateral. And she still agreed to help save this place. She doesn't owe you grace. He swallowed. I'll talk to her. I stood. You'll listen. That evening, they talked on the dock. I watched from the porch. Mira stood the whole time, arms crossed. Tyler sat, fidgeted, nodded, talked. Eventually she sat too. They didn't hug, but they didn't walk away angry. And that was enough. Later, she told me, I don't know if he means it yet, but I think he wants to. Sometimes that's the best we get from people. The desire to be better. Summer bled into fall. Leaves started to burn red at the edges. Mira decided to renovate the upstairs loft. Turn it into a writing studio. I helped rip up the carpet, hauled out the moldy futon, and watched her blueprint the space like it was her own production studio. Which, in a way, it was. Tyler came up 2 weekends in a row. Helped install a new railing on the dock. Didn't complain. Didn't make jokes. He even brought real coffee. Not cold brew in a can. Actual beans. A grinder. Filters. You roast your own yet? I joked. Next summer, he said. If I'm lucky. Mira smirked from behind her laptop. Progress. Not perfection, but better. One night, as the sun dipped behind the pines and the lake mirrored the sky, Tyler stood next to me on the porch and said, I used to think being a man meant winning arguments. And now, I think it means not needing to win at all. I nodded. Then we sat there in silence. 2 generations. 1 repaired dock. And a legacy that wasn't broken. It was just finally under new management. By the time October rolled in, the lake house no longer felt like a war memorial. It felt lived in. Reclaimed. Like we'd finally vacuumed out all the ghosts hiding in the cedar walls and polished the rot out of the old floorboards. Even Mira started calling it home. The trees were shedding fast by then. Gold and red leaves carpeted the deck and blanketed the shoreline. I'd rake in the mornings with the dog trailing behind me like a sleepy security guard, and by lunch it would look like I hadn't touched a thing. Still, I kept at it. Because ritual matters. Just like the legacy dinner had mattered. Just like the silence afterward had spoken louder than 1,000 family therapy sessions. And then, one day, a letter arrived. Not a text. Not an email. A letter. Cream envelope. Thick cardstock. Addressed in cursive like it had been written by someone who still believed in stationery. It was from Lila. Yeah, that Lila. She'd written to Mira. Said she'd found Myra's name on the lakehouse property records and wanted to clear the air. She used words like regret, boundaries, and healing. Apparently, Darren had left Vancouver. Sold his practice. Took a job in some lesser-known Florida town doing luxury pool design for retired influencers. His reputation in our circle? Cooked. Torched. People still whispered about that video from the barbecue. The one no one could prove, but everyone felt in their bones. According to Lila, he barely spoke now. Said things like, it's all rigged, and legacy is a scam. Whatever. Karma eats its lunch cold. The kicker? She ended the letter with a short note. Tell your dad. I hope he writes a book someday. Mira read it aloud while I was oiling the canoe. I didn't laugh. I just shrugged. Not a bad idea, I said. 2 days later, Paige showed up. Not in person, thankfully. She called. Blocked number. Mira answered by accident. Hello. Then, hold on. Dad, it's your ex. I took the phone and walked onto the porch. Greg, Paige said, voice flat. Can we talk? About Tyler. About what happens next. I sat on the swing. The one she used to read trashy romance novels and pretend she was some kind of lake queen. What has happened next, Paige? A pause. Then, he wants to come back. Not full-time. Just maybe for Thanksgiving. I didn't respond right away. She kept going. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I'm not even asking you to let me in. But Tyler's trying. He's growing up. You said you'd give him a chance. That part was true. But here's the thing about second chances. They have terms. And you? I asked. You planning to tag along? Another pause. No. I'm not invited. I get it. I waited. Thank you, she added quietly, for not turning him against me. You did that yourself. Click. Call ended. I walked back inside. Mira didn't ask what was said, just raised an eyebrow. He's coming for Thanksgiving, I said. Maybe. Page 2. Nope. Mira nodded. Good. We started preparing the lake house for the fall holidays. Brought out the extra blankets. Polished the china that hadn't seen daylight since Obama's first term. Mira baked muffins that somehow exploded in the oven but still tasted like maple heaven. I smoked a turkey early, trial run. Tyler arrived a week before the actual holiday. He brought flowers. For Mira. I'm not sucking up, he said immediately, hands up like a parolee. They're just nice. That's it. She took them. Didn't smile. Didn't sneer. Progress. That night, over stew and sourdough, Tyler finally asked. What made you do it? Do what? The will. The dinner. The whole show. I took a bite, chewed slow. You call me a loser. He looked down. I know. I was wrong, I said, finishing for him. Yeah. I took a breath. Because I didn't need to fight back with fists or threats. I fought back with legacy. And no matter how messy this family gets, there's one thing I won't hand out lightly anymore. What's that? Honor. He sat with that. Didn't argue. Didn't squirm. Just nodded. Mira poured him more wine. He didn't ask for it. She just did it. Thanksgiving came cold and early that year. Snow dusted the windows. The fire stayed lit for 3 straight days. Tyler helped with the turkey. I caught him reading my brother's old journals on the porch, eyes squinting against the low sun. Later, I found a note from him tucked under my plate. Just one sentence. I want to be worthy of this place. I didn't respond. Didn't need to. Because for the first time in months, my son wasn't trying to win. He was trying to rebuild. That night, Mira and I sat by the dock, bundled in hoodies and flannel, hot cider steaming in our hands. You think he means it? She asked. Doesn't matter yet, I said. What matters is that we don't. She tilted her head. We don't what? Chase. Apologize. Shrink. We built something here. And he's welcome. But only if he brings bricks. She smiled. I like that. She looked up at the stars. Think your brother would be proud? I didn't answer right away. Because in my heart, I already knew the truth. He would be. Not because I protected the lake house, but because I finally learned how to protect myself. And that's a legacy worth passing on. The lake froze the day before Christmas. Not all the way, just a thin film across the top, enough to reflect the bare trees and sharpen the wind. Mira called it poetic. Tyler called it brutal. I called it quiet, which, frankly, was my favorite kind of cold. Inside, the lake house felt warmer than it had in years. Not just the fire or the stacked wool blankets. The warmth was something slower. Earned. Like the walls had finally relaxed. Like the beams themselves had exhaled. After all the yelling, all the secrets, all the forced family smiles and weaponized nostalgia, it was finally just us. Mira was upstairs painting again, converting the old guest room into a proper studio. Tyler had taken to chopping wood in the mornings, partly to help, partly to punish himself, I think. The dog followed him like a lumberjack groupie. And me? I wrote. Not a book. Not yet. Just bits and pieces. Reflections. Notes. Ideas about what legacy meant when no one was watching. That week between Christmas and New Year's always made me think too much. But for once, I didn't mind it. That is, until a rental car pulled up the gravel drive. I knew before I looked who it was. I could feel it in my teeth. Paige stepped out wearing a pea coat that cost more than the dock repairs and boots that weren't meant for anything but Instagram stories. She didn't look around, didn't smile, just stood there, clutching her purse like it might float away if she blinked. I opened the door but didn't step outside. She spoke first. "I'm not staying." "Good. I just came to talk." "Tyler's inside." "It's not about him." That caught me off guard. She stepped up the first stair. "I've been in therapy." "Do they give out trophies for that now?" She flinched, then nodded like she deserved it. "Fair." She looked past me into the house. "This place was never really ours, was it?" "No," I said. "You never treated it like it was." Another nod. "I thought Darren was freedom. I thought he saw me. You always seemed content." I said. "That was the point." She swallowed. "I messed up. I know that." I waited. "But you need to know something." I raised an eyebrow. "He planned it." "Darren. Not the affair, but everything after. The manipulation. The fake partnership. The bills. He wanted me to break you. Said if I humiliated you enough, you'd fold. Said men like you always do." I didn't respond. Because it didn't matter. Not anymore. She kept going. "When you stood up at that dinner, and when you read that fake will, and named Mira instead of Tyler." She paused. "You weren't just cutting us out. You were finally choosing yourself." She stepped back. "I didn't think you had that in you." I smiled. "Neither did you." Then I closed the door. I didn't tell Mira or Tyler about the visit. Not that day. Because some scenes don't need an audience. Some moments are just for you. New Year's Eve came and went quietly. We grilled steaks on the deck, lit a few sparklers. Mira played an old record that skipped on the second track, but we let it play anyway. Tyler made a toast with sparkling cider. "To what we burned," he said. "And what we built," Mira added. I didn't say anything, just clinked glasses and looked out at the frozen lake. Let it mirror our quiet little empire. Mid-January, Tyler left for college again. He packed carefully, hugged Mira twice, hugged me once, said he'd call more. I didn't tell him not to, just nodded and handed him the last box. He looked back before getting in the car. "I want to come back this summer. Really come back. Help with the repairs. Be part of this." "You already are," I said. Then he was gone. Mira and I got back to work. The renovation upstairs was nearly done. We found a box of my brother's old Super 8 films in the attic. Grainy family memories, silent but potent. Mira digitized them. I watched them at night, one at a time, sipping tea with the dog curled up under my chair. In one, my brother's laughing on the dock, young, shirtless, chasing Mira when she was a toddler with a bucket of lake water. Paige is in the background, smiling. It doesn't sting like it used to. It just feels distant, like a chapter that doesn't need rereading. Spring came slow. Birds returned. Ice melted. The house creaked less in the mornings. One afternoon, Mira handed me a thick folder. "What's this?" "Business plan," she said. "For the lake house." I opened it. Inside, ideas for retreats, workshops, maybe even small creative residencies. "I thought you might want to be more than a caretaker," she said. I looked around. At the walls we repainted. At the staircase we reinforced. At the photographs we hung together. "You think anyone would come?" "They won't just come," she said. "They'll learn something." "What?" "How to stay." That night, I walked down to the dock alone. The moon was high, water still. Not quite summer, not quite spring. A perfect in-between. I thought about the word legacy. Not the stuff in bank accounts or title deeds. The other kind. The kind that sticks. The kind you have to fight for, quietly, without applause. A ripple moved across the lake. I took a breath. And for the first time in years, I let go of the past like it owed me nothing. Because it didn't. Not anymore. I had a future. A house full of it. That's the end of it. That's how I buried the version of myself that took betrayal like a gentleman and built a life out of the rubble. Not for revenge. Not for credit. But for clarity. Because sometimes, the best way to win is to make sure you're the one holding the pen when the final page turns. Subscribe to the channel